Yes, you have hit the top end of YouTube. You are looking at a Wikipedia page scrolling past with some crazy title music in the background. This is Couch Coop Classics. I am Couch Coop. This is episode 1 and we're going to cover Metal Slug. There's been more releases of this game than there has been No Man's Sky updates. It's massive, the amount of content they've put out surrounding the brand name. This is the original Neo Geo intro and it's a classic. I remember seeing this as a teenager, looking over someone's shoulder and seeing the graphics on a cabinet at the time. That tank, the idea of having a vehicle, which was very much the selling point of the original game. It was all about the super tank that you sat in and created havoc from. Modern reconceptions of the game have never messed around with the original foundations. This has never been completely overhauled and remastered on a visual level, although there is some modern variants that have a very updated look. The core releases around the Metal Slug brand always had this amazing, distinguishable style.
Heavy machine gun, flame shot.
I wanted to talk about the pads for the machine. You could get an amazing arcade stick. That beautiful squared graphite grey was considered back then extremely expensive ob shadar, but it's the original pad that I'm interested in. It didn't have a directional button on it. It was all about that analog stick, which must have been a bit of a nightmare. I suppose they were looking at that multi-directional firing capability, which was a brand spanking new idea back then, but able to fire diagonally up and down through platforms and just have that freedom. It was like, wow, new world. Talking of the new world, look at the layout of this level and you'll see it a lot. Reminds me of quite a few newer games. This is all PlayStation 5 footage, and this is the aspect ratio stretched to match a widescreen TV, and you'll see the normal ratios coming up with the borders on. I kind of prefer the latter because I'm so used to that arcade cabinet. Why on earth does it do this? Because the game was originally made on squared screens. There was none of that wide panoramic. In order to put it on a normal TV, you'd have to elongate the graphics, and it just doesn't carry too well with me. What on earth is it like couch co-op? Well, it is in short amazing and one of my favourite side-scrolling shooters. It's up there with games like Blazing Chrome that are recent homages that are available on the system, and couch co-op, almost Contra clones, but this is kind of where it all was gotten right, and that's why we don't have too many massive facelifts or reiterations of the model on remakes, is because it was all in the right place at the beginning. We're going to be going quite far back with this couch co-op classics series, and this isn't as far back as we can go. Obviously, I'm talking about Atari Pong the year dot, but I wanted to talk about this game because it's not going to be in my top 25, and we're moving into the top 10 territory soon, and I want to make sure this is spoken about for my newest subscribers. It was a couple of years ago that it featured in a 5 more. Briefly, I just spoke about it in passing, so a nice deep dive is well worth it. It controls completely how you'd imagine, and it's got the strangest melee system where if someone's near you and you fire your gun, you'll actually do a melee stab attack move. Mercenary Kings owes about 80% of its look and gameplay model to this game, and they would probably be the first to tell you that. One thing you will notice on speedruns or looking at people who like to take no damage or rescue all the prisoners on levels is that you can kind of bulldoze this. If you're good at knowing where everything's going to appear and be, you can kind of just smash straight through almost non-stop. The speedrunning community for this game is huge and strong and well worth looking at. The bosses and boss fights are well worth talking about as well. It was kind of the first time for me that I'd played a decent side-scrolling run and gunner that locked me into an arena and gave me a boss that had multiple attack patterns and even forms. And the beauty of all of the different plates of metal or the slow destruction of a boss in front of you is amazing, and that's probably going to get to the title of the video. Is this is kind of a celebration of this game's looks. I feel back then that lack of power and tools and things to use to create good looking video games, they were like starved of decent tech. They just had to use what they got, push them to produce absolute labours of love with all the animations and colours and boss designs as well. This game's got the most outlandish bosses and vehicles. At one point you control a giant mech with diggers for hands and you whack planes out of the sky. I shit you not, it takes the whole screen up.
Thank you.
Why on earth don't you show us that then, Coop? Because this is my next point. This game is ridiculously hard. On single player and co-op, it doesn't let up. It doesn't actually change when you go couch co-op. So things can be a little bit easier on early levels. But it is bullet hell. You've got to be jumping around like a lunatic, and getting used to the whole pace of it can be very daunting. It's not one for grandma, obviously, and it may not be one for the youngers because A, the gore, and B, it's just relentless on you. It was a different era when they made games like this. They weren't making them to make sure that you didn't get triggered or have any PTSD after playing. They didn't give a damn. They wanted to make these things as hard as hell, and this one is bang on. One thing that hasn't aged too well, if you've got like a partner or no headphones, is the racket of the whole thing. That gun in the options you can put as auto fire. So that gives you an idea of it just doesn't need to stop, and it doesn't stop. How smart actually deploy a similar thing with stuff like Next Machimal or Rezo Gun. Constantly firing is kind of the way forward. The version that we're looking at now is Metal Slug XX, and it is available on the PlayStation Store, and of course it is only 2-player couch co-op, but it's so worth a visit. It's available on the PlayStation 4 and it's been on just about every system on the planet. I have been Couch Coop. Stay tuned. I've got a trailer coming up for a new horror series. Don't watch if you're squeamish.
How long have we been on this rock?